Radio One.
If you could go back,
Does that have anything to do with
and what if that was your last chance?
seeing how things turned out? Would you now change?
Was that your
I
decision?
can't imagine what that would feel like.
We want to know.
We want to know.
We want to know.
We want to know.
We wanna know.
People say that within every person there is a whole galaxy.
We want to know.
Are people right?
From the creators of American in Yerevan, Ina M.K.
And Stephen Oxner
Homesick.
at home.
Have you ever felt that way?
Shot City, coming home again.
Welcome to our Friday evening relaxed conversation here. at
And he's
Radio
back
Von.
home.
Stephen is back home.
Stephen is back home.
Very happy to be here with you, Ina.
I know. Feel the same way.
But you did a great job last week.
Oh,
Ina had her own show
Thank
last
you.
week.
I was so
and
nervous.
She asked all the most interesting and intelligent questions.
Yeah, I wonder
Very
who
good
helped
job.
me with those.
Tonight we have Edward Binder with us here in the studio. And it's hard to say where you're from because it seems like you're from a lot of different places. But we could say that he is part of the German diaspora living in Armenia. The people who had to run away from all of the very well organized infrastructure and very high level of social support programs. You had to run away from all of that to come here, right?
Oh, right. You're right. You're so right.
And I love the accent.
I'm trying. I'm just having a cold. But thank you for the invitation,
Thanks
Ina
for
and
being
Stephen.
with us.
I'm happy to be here.
We're
And
happy to
let's see.
have you.
And we can even say hello to Stephen Donatelli.
Hey, Stephen Donatelli.
Hey.
Thanks for
Who's
giving us
watching us?
the recommendation, because that's how we met you,
Yeah.
and that's how we invited you here, because he suggested you to come on over, which must mean that he thinks you're pretty brave. Because that couch isn't red for no reason.
I
Because
see.
It's the hot seat.
Oh, yeah. I never
Um,
thought of it that way.
You never thought of it that way?
No. But that's a good point.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that. Hot guest on a hot seat. Okay.
We're sitting here and we're tasting some really quite incredible red wine. I know it's incredible not just by my own taste buds, but because Ina likes it. A person who's not
Yeah,
a big
I do.
fan. Last year at Christmas, I tried to make Glintvein for everyone, and she said,
Oh, it was so
"I
good.
don't want any."
Come on, Stephen.
Can you tell us a little bit about this wine that you brought to share with us today?
Yes, I brought my favorite red wine here in Armenia. So far, I would have loved to bring you the reserve, which means it was fermented in a barrique barrel. But this is the second best, and it's from the same company. It's Kataro, and it's coming from Mountain Karabakh. And up to my opinion, it's one of the best red wines here in Armenia you can get. Also by price-quality ratio, like when I'm talking professionally, because you have to compare with other wines and how much you're spending for it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
therefore,
To fill anyone in who's wondering why we started off just with wine, you have been involved in the wine industry in how many countries?
I've changed jobs quite often, and I've done my PhD, and my PhD was about comparative analysis like Hungary, Romania, and Moldova, each being in the development of not only the wine market, but of the economy on different stages. And then I focused on the wine market. And like Hungary was 5 years before Romania, Romania 5 years before Moldova, and how they changed after the EU East Bloc Erweiterung. Now I'm looking for the English word for it.
Weidung.
Erweiterung. But never mind.
okay.
And it was a comparative. So I got into wine economics, and I had a chance here to get the projects from GIZ. It's like USAID, only the German version of it. And we built up a wine academy, and we started with 15 students, and now last generation I was allowed to help was like 30 students. About this year I think they're having similar numbers, and it's about educational development to make the Armenian wine better and to improve the quality and to make it more internationally competitive.
Do you train like workers at the wine factories? Or
No, it's
just the students.
it's academic studies with 18
okay.
months certificate, and we're having meanwhile a laboratory, and they've done a good job, and we're having a tasting room, and we are trying to get the students for their internships out as much as possible and going to the wineries and to make practical work actually. And this is
Cool.
helping the country in so far because wine is a positive product, you can say so, but I mean, to emphasize it more for the country itself, it's so important because by wine you can promote the history of the country, the tradition of the country, and also the culture. And marketing-wise, it's very important that people understand it here internally in the country itself and also externally, what it means, wine coming from Armenia and what's behind it as, heritage of wine, what they've proved being here 6,100 years ago.
And so what do you usually say when someone asks you, okay, what's behind the Armenian wine? Tell me about Armenian wine. And
I
what
can tell
say
you,
about it?
it's about, then we have to start the whole story now. It's going to become a lecture and maybe it's going to be too long. I'm going to keep it really simple. It's
Okay,
more about
sure.
the communistic era. I mean, to the 90s, it was like this, that Georgia was responsible for the wine production for the Soviet Union and Armenia more for the cognac production. But meanwhile, it's changed a little bit and Armenia is also producing very good wine.
So this is one of the questions we're gonna ask
here
you,
we go.
because we know that Armenians and Georgian people compete a lot between each other, culture-wise, and there are even a lot of jokes about these two cultures,
Yes, I know.
So
I'm
Armenian.
sure you've heard them.
Yes, I
Do you
was
know
beforehand.
know any Georgian Armenian jokes off the top of your head?
Not that I remember, but I know I was working beforehand in Georgia and also helping them during the crisis when they didn't have access to the Russian market and to make up a country brand, which is easier to promote all the companies who are producing wine.
Yeah, right.
And it
right.
was necessary for them to do more export. And now it was an advantage for them because they are doing lots of exports. If you're going to Georgia, they are promoting it also touristic-wise, which is the next step for Armenian wineries, actually.
It's for tourists to
Yeah, for
come
tourists,
and see the wineries,
yes.
do tastings.
And to sell it directly and to have better margins and to promote also the country and the regions and the culture and heritage and everything.
Wow, that sounds like a great
Because
plan.
Armenians are really proud of their wine and cognac, and
Yes,
cognac is
exactly.
kind of like more promoted in
Yes, it is.
in
The
some
companies are
sense.
just bigger, they're having better funds and they started long time ago and they're having all the experience. With wine, it's already good for them if they can sell it to the diaspora and they're getting into it and we're helping them as much as possible.
Yeah.
Also by educational wise and to make it more competitive.
So Armenian wine versus Georgian wine.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, which is better?
This was
or
the
even more
question.
pointed, which came first?
The chicken or the egg.
Let's give a diplomatic answer. I mean, heritage of wine is coming definitely here from the region where it's spread worldwide. You can't make it up, but right now you can say that the wine, because they found this winery, this oldest winery in the world, in Arini, that the wine is coming actually from there.
Hey. You see?
They say that Noah
See
planted the first wine branch.
The
or
first,
wine.
really?
Yeah,
The first grape vine.
on the foothill of Mountain Ararat.
And that's how wine started.
That's the legend.
Yes,
Here.
it is.
Okay. Well, more about wine and more about this wonderful guest that we have today. Thank you for being with us. When we come back, we're going to just go for a quick break, and we'll be back with even more difficult questions for you, Edward.
Homesick at home.
Don't go away.
Uh-oh.
We have a wine expert in our studio, and I have a sommelier in my family.
Huh?
My brother is this man.
Congratulations.
Oh, yes. Yes, congratulations, Mike. If you're listening to us in Montana. And I had the pleasure of working with him for one summer he has a restaurant that is really, it's I don't know if you could call it a bar restaurant or a restaurant bar, but he has really delicious food and really cool wines. And part of our job was to learn about wine and tasting so that we could pair it for people when they order something. And we had wine school every Thursday. And I remember, I'm not sure what I remember from it, but I remember learning a lot about how you can taste like different kinds of nuts and different kinds of peppers and different kinds of fruits inside of
And
wine.
chocolate and
Chocolate
vanilla.
and vanilla,
and
yeah.
all the smells, yes.
So what are your favorite aspects of wine? What do you look for when you're tasting something, you yourself?
Professionally speaking, I have to compare it because I also trying to promote how to sell the wine, and you have to look first for the price-quality ratio. And of course, the wine have to be proper, but you can have cheap wines which are good, and then you can have expensive wines which are, of course, better. But nevertheless, you have to see this ratio and how you can sell it first, and how consumers will like it or not. And it's not up to my taste. It's very subjective on one hand, but you're having this international wine degustations where you're trying to get an average and to give it a medal or not, and to advise the consumer what to buy at the end.
This is all professional terms, and
But let's say it this way.
Give the people what they like.
When you're having a wine tasting, it's the most classy way to get wasted. So, with other words.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but there is another question I have.
Yeah, here we go.
Can I?
I would love it if you
Have
would.
you heard about Omar Khayyam? And he has these really short poems, and there are a lot of them about wine and women, and so here is one of them. Today is the time of my youth. I drink wine because it is my solace. Do not blame me, although it is bitter, it is pleasant. It is bitter because it is my life. So, is wine your life? What do you think of it?
It's
What
my
do you
free
think?
life when I'm not working, definitely. In this regards, it's fitting perfectly to each dinner. I mean, for me, because I'm used to it, and I think it's really a lot of work. I think it's the most individual product you can get in any supermarket. Each bottle, even if it's produced properly, can be different from each other, and you have these small differences. Or when you're having a winery next to each other, I mean neighboring wineries, and they're producing the same wine from the same grape, nevertheless it can taste different because of the terroir, I mean the earth, because of the weather,
sun,
because of the technique
yeah.
of production, because of there are so many factors, and they're still not finished doing research on it.
Amazing.
Yes.
Wow.
We're
And you-
having a lesson here tonight.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're
I'm
having-
trying to avoid it.
And the grapes are very important. Have you noticed any kind of particular characteristics to the Armenian grape? Because I know that there are unique grapes to this region, correct?
Yes,
That you can't find
they-
anywhere else.
Exactly. No, they're very different, and they are representing also the soil here, what you're having in Armenia, and also because they're having a lot of rocks and stones in the field, and you can taste it actually. And
Wow.
it's very interesting, and they're having this autochthon, I mean, this indigenous grape varieties which are just growing here in Armenia, and some wineries are trying to focus just on them and to promote them. And I think with some research, it's going to be competitive on the international market, because they're differentiating from the usual ones like Merlot, Chardonnay. Everybody knows about these ones, but not about the autochthon grape varieties here in Armenia. And lots of work to do, but it's worth it.
It's amazing. You are here at a very exciting time. Or Armenia is experiencing you at a very exciting time. I'm not sure which.
It's all coincided, you know. It was a fate.
It was
I
a
think,
fate, yeah.
yeah.
no doubt. But can we just go back a little bit and talk about where you were before you came here? And what brought you here?
How much do you want to go back?
Well, we only have 1 hour. 40 minutes.
Yeah, well, I know it's very good. It's very
With
quick.
the wine, I started after I was in investment banking beforehand, and then I was in EU funding for Eastern Europe, and then I got into wine. And because my parents were into wine, I never wanted to do it. But then because I knew how to taste the wine, say it this way, I did my PhD at the university in Germany, and then I was lecturer and doing there some research, and then I became a consultant for wineries in Eastern Europe, because they're having this affinity to Eastern Europe, being there really long time.
And what brought you here exactly then?
It was
Job.
the job, of course.
It was teaching. It was teaching this wine course. That you
No,
did.
it was really a very interesting, positive project financed by GIZ and the Ministry of International Collaboration from Germany. It's called GIZ, like USAID to compare it. And I was there having a special form, and it's called Integrated Expert, where you're going alone to the university with being independent from the organization, like GIZ. And then you're helping with the Armenians together to build up a wine academy.
Okay, yes.
And we did so far. If you want to know, and if somebody of the listeners is interested, to promote them a little bit, look on the internet, EVN Wine Academy, and then you can study even making a wine and to promote and to sell a wine.
Okay.
And to get even into the wine business, because I think this is the nicest study course in the world you can have, because some courses consist just of wine tastings. You tell it to somebody.
Everyone is just getting wasted
Exactly.
classy
You're
for
getting
a couple months, and then they all leave and they say, what were we? What was that? We were just learning about.
But we had a good time.
Well, it was worth it.
It's much more just a small part, but nevertheless, if you're explaining it to somebody, they're going to wonder, you're getting credits for it?
Sure.
Well, now we know what brought you here, but what made you stay here?
Yes.
Because
Oh,
as far as
This is
we
where it gets
understand, it's
interesting.
over, right?
There's three reasons. There's the reason of the country. I really fall in love with the country and the
And the
people
wine,
itself.
of course.
Then, of course, business, because I'm right now also in startup in IT here in Armenia. And the most important reason, of course,
Ta-da!
ta-da, woman.
Wave. Wave.
Oh, she's watching us.
Yes.
Oh, those Armenian women.
Oh, those are Armenian
And
women.
wine. Oh, I guess Omar Khayyam was right.
Yeah.
Women and wine.
We have to go for another break now, but if you would like to tell any of your friends about our program who live abroad, they can always listen to us and watch us at www.radiovan.fm, and we have recordings there as well as on our Facebook page where you can check us out and see how wonderful your fiance made you look this evening. She gave us a little note before we started to put his collar inside of his sweater.
Oh, that is so sweet.
Don't go away. We're still here until 10 o'clock on Homesick at Home with Ina MK.
And Stephen Oxner.
Here we are, back with Eduard Binder, one of the only representatives I've met from the German diaspora in Armenia.
Soon more.
Soon more. Really? Soon? Have you met anyone else who's from Germany here?
All of them. There are quite a lot working here, and also for GIZ and from the embassy and also from the companies.
Okay, yes. So we will be in touch.
Yeah,
with all of
we
your
have a lot of
friends.
guests coming soon.
So we've talked about wine. We've talked a little bit about wine, and we've been tasting wine, and it's a very wonderful experience. But let's say, for example, someone told you, okay, no more wine. You have to go to an island in the Pacific Ocean, and you have to live there for the rest of your life. You'll have food. You'll stay alive, but you can only take one book with you. Just one book. What book would you take?
Hitchhiker's Guide Through the Galaxy.
Really?
I love it. It's like a
Cool.
Bible for me, at least.
Really?
He
Tell
didn't-
us about
He
it.
didn't even think about
Yeah,
it
he
for
just
a
knew.
second. Yeah, he just
Oh no, I've read it like 7 times in different languages, and it's having some truth in it, and it's written like Douglas Adams, a British guy, and it's having this dark sense of humor and not taking anything serious, and it's like about everything and nothing, and therefore it was so impressive, and it's having this craziness, this British humor in it, and it's very impressive, up to my mind.
Great. That's great. And there was a film that was made.
But it was a pity, because they're having a series from it, made by the guys from Monty Python, and this is much better. The first book was done by them, and it's having the idea of it. It's much better.
It has the absurdity.
Yeah, the absurdity. Exactly. You can't do it. I'm sorry with Americans.
Yeah, we're not ironic enough. We have
Yes,
we
you
have
to
enough
be
going on with
sarcastic
with our new president to be sarcastic.
Yeah, by the way, what do you think?
But no, they proved a good sense of humor. Come on.
And I have a question.
Okay, here we go.
If you could throw a dinner party with 2 historical figures, living or dead, who would that be? And what would you serve?
Oh, that's a tricky question. Oh my god.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to regret the answer then, because I'm going to think which really, but Augustus would have been very interesting.
Okay.
Augustus. Would have been one of them, and the other would have been like Einstein, I suppose.
Wow, that would be a party.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would you have any kind of questions to start that conversation with them? What kind of questions would you ask
Like
them?
the book beforehand, why and the sense of life?
Yeah, absolutely.
And which wine do you prefer?
Yeah.
Do you like this wine?
Do you like this wine? Exactly.
And what would you serve to them?
Of course, wine. No, you don't have to go for something to eat. Then it's getting more open-minded, and you're getting to more informal, and that's getting more interesting.
I see. Okay, so we have to get to the serious meat of our program, because as you know, this is called Homesick at Home. And you have lived in many, 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 many places.
Many homes.
You've lived in the Netherlands, I know, in Spain, in Germany. You were born in Romania. You left when you were 7 years old.
Yeah.
You lived in Georgia, where else? In Armenia.
In Georgia, Armenia, Moldova,
Moldova.
a little bit in France, in London, and there's one country missing. I just have to think about it. In Austria.
In Austria, I see.
Oh, there.
Where do you feel most at home?
I must say, a little bit abstract. You can say because you're born and you're still hanging to the country you're born in. It's like motherland, so it's going to be Romania, nevertheless. Where I didn't spend as much time actually, but nevertheless, relatives are there and so on, part of them, and but fatherland is nevertheless Germany.
Motherland. Romania,
Motherland and fatherland.
Yeah.
Germany. That makes sense.
And
Makes a lot
Armenia
of
is
sense.
babyland.
Yeah, exactly. That was a good
It's
one.
babyland. You're right.
Or a land of love.
Or the land of love.
Yeah.
I think that's Paris.
Okay.
My impression, I wondered also with friends who are in the same position like I am. What is special about Armenia? I don't know. I still can't grab it, but it's having this like radioactive thing, but in a positive way, which is attracting you. And therefore, I can explain it only this way, that Armenians are very patriotic and love their country. It's something, this thing you can't grab. But this is my impression being here since 2.5 years.
For 2.5 years you've been in Armenia. Yeah, I can imagine how you feel, because for me too, there is this thing. I remember my first trip here.
This is so interesting.
Yeah.
Keep going.
My first trip here was like a breath of fresh air, to be honest. I was having a kind of a little bit of a hard time living in Moscow, and I had just gone through the winter, which is always very difficult in Moscow, and I came here and I felt like and that like exhale was something that has really it's still going on to this day. Every time I come back to Armenia, I have this feeling like, oh, thank God.
Steven's
I'm
like
back.
taking a break here and then keep going.
And then keep going.
On the
Yeah.
race.
Yeah, I take my break in Armenia and then I keep going.
It's like a bubble, a positive one, but you're enjoying it every second.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah.
You guys make me feel really happy with what you say.
And so then there's the other question. Are you homesick at all? Do you get homesick?
No, I lived in so many countries, and not necessarily. It's more about the family and parents, where you relatives and friends. But you're keeping it up on the contacts. I mean, we're having the all the instruments for doing so, like internet and phone and whatever,
Yeah.
and you can fly any day back if it's really the case. But actually, no, we're on the same planet at the end. So if
Yeah.
you're in Armenia or in Germany or somewhere else, it doesn't matter.
Seems like you spend a lot of time working in the wine industry, but do you have any other passions in life?
Any other passions besides wine?
Well, first of all, is wine one of your passions? Is it
Yeah.
a passion?
Yes,
of
of
yours?
course, it is one of my
Seems-
passions. But more while I'm traveling, or I moved so much between countries, it wasn't. I had every time the chance to stay somewhere. But I'm more the type, maybe because switching countries when I was young to another, to learn something new and to get a grip and to get to know new people and new attitudes, new characters, not information, it's the wrong word for it, but new impressions. And therefore,
Do you think that it's possible to carry a feeling of home around with you?
yes, of course, you're always having it in your heart.
And is that something that you had to work for? Did you have to sort of, or has that always been with you? Has it always been in your heart, or is it something that you had to kind of grab?
No, you're realizing it properly when you're a little bit older, but no, you're having it by instinct, I suppose. My opinion. My humble opinion.
Yeah, like an instinct to stay alive, like that kind of instinct.
No, to enjoy life and to enjoy the new environment and to do the best out of it, because you're having, of course, at the beginning it's always hard wherever you are, but if you're open-minded, you don't even have to adjust to it, but you're open for new impressions and new ideas and new things.
Do
Well-
you have a
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. Do you have a favorite food here?
Oh,
And that's a good one, but the stellet, I mean the sturgeon,
Yeah, the
this
fish.
is the best I had worldwide, say it this way.
And it goes good with wine, right?
Yes, it goes good with wine, but by itself it's something special. Don't have it somewhere else this way.
we're gonna go to a quick break here, listen to some Radiohead, and then we'll have an advertisement, and we'll be right back. Don't go away. We're still here for another 30 minutes, 25 minutes here on Homesick at Home.
With Steven Oxner
And Ina MK.
and our guest, Edward.
Ina,
Yes, Steven.
I want to go home.
But alla, du Dannes.
So bring me home.
In
Yeah?
our favorite home here at Radio Von. And
Alla, you're
Shushanik
at
is back,
home.
right? Mom came back?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Soon,
When is she
coming
coming
soon.
home? Shushanik, where are you?
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow?
I think.
Oh,
yeah.
great. We have
Mary's giving me a hint. Tomorrow.
well, just
Tomorrow.
we have
Thank
we
you,
have the
Mary.
most incredible boss here at Radio Von, and she's like she's really a mother to us all, but she's also a real mother, and her daughter is a film director, and they went to America to take part in a couple of film festivals, Chicago Film Festival and something else, another film festival, with this film that she made 2 years ago already.
Called
Good
Barry
Morning.
Lewis.
Barry
Good
Lewis,
Morning. Yeah.
Nice.
Very interesting film. I think one of
About
the
the
first
90s.
yeah, one of the first films that was made about the 90s in this really touching way, talking about the generation that came after that too, and yeah, it's very interesting. So she'll be back tomorrow, and well,
And do you speak Armenian?
yeah. Speaking of Barry Lewis,
Speaking of Barry Lewis.
But yes, I do. I suppose so.
Say
At least
something.
say something.
being a tourist and not tourist, but being here and not really, and it's a pity. But I will have now to learn Armenian. But being like here for a long time, and I can deal with taxi drivers.
Oh, that's already a level.
That's
Oh, is it a level?
Yeah. Okay.
Level 1 is complete.
Level 1 is complete. Taxi drivers.
Are there any funny stories connected with maybe taxi drivers or Armenia?
Yes, it was like you're asking right now. One policeman, and the coincidence was I had rented a car going on the way to Tbilisi and driving like in Germany, how you expect, and not really fast, but it was in a village, and of course they've stopped me. And this was, and I wasn't stopped the first time. I was stopped like every day, but this policeman, and he was a very nice guy, and he was able to speak English. And then he asked me to get out of the car and showed me on the list how much I would have to pay. But for me, being a foreigner, it's a certain discount. And
No way.
I was still not moving because I knew. I mean, foreigners are having a privileged status here, and I exploited it, I must say. But it was a nice guy. He was still speaking to me, and then he was, to become more friendly, he was asking me, and do you speak any Armenian? And I was like, ayo, chichi, hingali. And then which doesn't make sense in Hingali, it's coming from Georgia, I know. But he started to laugh, and he was a really nice guy. And so we agreed that he's getting something just because he was very nice, and I was allowed
For
to
his
drive away.
English.
Yeah, because he learned he has a different status as a police
because
officer.
he had a sense of humor and didn't take it very serious by himself. And it was very nice, I must say, the coincidence.
Sense of humor is, has a value.
Yeah, sense of humor has a big value. My mom, do you know this game Monopoly? Have you heard of
Yeah.
Monopoly?
Of
This game,
course.
of course. So there's the get out of jail free card. My mom used to keep it in her wallet. And so when she got pulled over, she would give her license to the police officer, but under the license would be the get out of jail free card, and she got out of a couple of tickets that way.
Yes, but it's a good joke. Why not?
Yeah, because I think, everyone has moments in their work when they feel very bored. And I can't imagine that it's pleasant for police to stop people all the time and find them all the time. So if you have a sense of humor, it goes a long way.
Humor will save the world.
Beauty.
Along with the beauty of
Along with the beauty. He's rolling in his grave.
It's new format.
So you have, as far as I understand, 3 mother languages, correct?
3, yes, 2 actually, but because no, it's Romanian, German, of
English,
course,
Yeah.
English 2, then Spanish, French, Dutch, and one is
Russian
missing.
basic.
Russian. No,
No?
it's too weak. But
Okay.
I had like 7 languages. One more.
One more somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
some other
around,
language.
Don't ask.
One of the
Dutch
other-
I forgot already because all the Dutch people are talking English, so
Oh,
no
I
time
see.
to practice.
How was it? This is from a very personal perspective because I have a daughter who's growing up right now with 3 right away because I have parents who only speak English. And my wife has parents a mom who mostly speaks Russian, Armenian, and then we speak Russian in the family. So she hears 3 languages all the time, and a lot of people are like, "Wow, how is that? It's probably too much for her. Her brain isn't developed yet." Did you have any kind of moments in your childhood where you felt like, which language do I speak right now? Or do you remember that you would mix them up while you were speaking as a child?
Oh no, I was lazy. I had to learn them later on when I was working in the different countries I
He
was
had
staying
to
in.
learn them.
I had to learn them the hard
That's
way.
how it
and
goes.
I was, like when I was coming to Germany, I was pushed into the 2nd class without being able to speak one word of German.
Whoa.
But because I was a little bit bigger, I got the respect of the others.
I think
And it
now
was-
you have to learn Armenian.
Yes, I will have to learn Armenian.
I don't think it will be very hard for you. Do you think that it will be difficult?
No, not 500,000 words to get along. Definitely not. But to be proper and to get the nuances and what actually is the meaning, that's going to be more interesting. I think you have to spend a lifetime for it. You know, yeah.
Yeah.
So we can
So-
give you one little lesson of Armenian
Okay,
now.
here.
Home.
Home.
In Armenian, it sounds like tun.
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 I
There
can
you
repeat
go.
this one.
Tun. Yeah.
A little lesson from Homesick at Home.
Little,
Tun.
how do you say homesick at home in Armenian?
Oh no, please.
Come on, come on. Come on. No.
Homesick at Home.
Okay, you're gonna have to think about that one.
Okay. I promise. Translation next time we enter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can
okay.
think
Thank you,
about it for the
Stephen.
next time. Can we ask you just to tell us a little bit about what you're doing now? You're working in a startup company.
Yes, I am the business development director of a startup company in IT here from Armenia. And we are going to open, I think we're the only ones who are going to open an office in Berlin very soon. And therefore I'm for the development and the contacts and for investors and for sales responsible. And they invented here in Armenia with Armenian human resources. We're having some really special guys. We're having, like, for example, a double PhD student, not student, PhD specialist, who's developing something for us which is very innovative. So the knowledge is here in Armenia. The company is called Ycaster, and it's about connecting the world based on Wi-Fi, which means instead of putting everywhere the antennas, especially in emerging countries where you don't have connection, internet or mobile connection, we can do it much, much cheaper, to a tenth of the cost, just by Wi-Fi. And you can imagine the impact when we are ready. And this innovation is patented, and it's going to change a lot of things, I suppose.
It's IT revolution.
It's
IT
really
revolution.
an
In
IT
Armenia.
revolution
Yeah.
coming from Armenia. And I think, besides wine, of course,
Yeah.
the IT industry is having all the chances possible in the
This is
world,
an
not only
interesting
here in
thing.
Armenia. Yeah.
There are a
Cool.
lot of really talented IT people in Armenia.
Yes, they
correct?
are, especially with the old education systems in physics and mathematics.
Mhm.
And they're very bright, I must say, and very decent and good guys.
Haha.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. It's amazing. It really does seem like Armenia found you in a way, with your interest in
Yes,
in
I'm
this
amazed
and in
too.
wine in
That's
particular.
what I was gonna say. Thank you.
I must thank
you know
you,
what? Thank you.
I must thank Armenia. So far, I didn't expect anything, and it was more than positive in every kind of respect.
Edward, do you have phobias? This is a
Oh,
contrast
yes,
question.
I'm swimming a lot and so on, and I'm having phobias because of medusas, this
Yeah.
jellyfish.
Jellyfish.
Yeah, whoa.
Whoa, yeah.
Yeah, they're not funny.
no, they're not. They're mean.
Yeah.
they're
that hurts.
swimming after you.
Okay, we don't have the sea, so we don't have them here. You're safe
Yeah,
here.
you found the right
Exactly.
place. no jellyfish in
No
Sivan.
jellyfish.
We'll be right back after this short break, and we'll have one more quick discussion before we say goodnight. Thanks for listening to us and for being with us, and thank you for being with us. It is now 9:53 and 42 seconds, which means that we have just a little bit more time here with Edward in our studio. Thank you for listening tonight, and thank you for being with us, Edward.
How do you feel?
I'm
Here.
feeling good. Yes,
I
definitely.
feel good.
With you. Because of you.
We feel quite good too. Well, I can't speak for you. I feel good. How do you feel?
I do feel good
Okay.
because
everyone
of
feels
Edward
good.
and the wine.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like a song.
Thank-
Edward and wine.
Thank you for the order.
Because of Edward and because of the wine. Oh, right, and Edward.
Edward goes along with wine. And yeah.
You have been working in two I think they're quite different. The wine market and the IT industry seem like they would have quite different people working in them.
Yeah,
Is that true?
it is true. And I had a wine tasting with IT like Napa Valley meets Silicon Valley, but the thing doing here in Armenia. And it's working well. As long as you're having wine around, everybody is getting along, and it's more about the development. It's following the same rules if you're talking about market development and how to approach and to sell good products.
Sure.
And you have to know beforehand what is good.
So
And
are
that's
you
the
saying
hard
that you have these meetings with the IT industry and the wine industry to exchange experience?
Oh no,
No,
it's more
you mean-
about the networking, that they're
Just
getting
uh-huh.
together and that you're doing some funding of some special projects and to have a nice evening, and that people are getting more open-minded, especially through wine. They're getting more informal and they can meet also other people.
They just do IT projects and drink wine along with it. Makes your brain work.
Exactly. Brainstorming.
Yeah.
Brainstorming.
Wine brainstorming. Have you ever drunk? Have you ever been drunk from a wine? I mean, really drunk.
Not really, because I need a lot.
Oh.
Yeah, builds up the tolerance. I
Yeah.
see.
Yes, but no, not
Never?
from wine. Really, from wine, not.
From wine, it's
No,
Oh.
you're having a
oh,
buzz, but
Ina,
Vodka?
sounds like maybe.
yeah, from spirits it's easier. From
We
Yeah.
could talk about that. If you were in your life, someone told you, okay, no more wine. You can't have wine ever again, but you can drink anything else. What would you choose?
because absinthe I would choose, but this is something special.
Oh, I
And I'm
see.
sorry not to say, being a German, not to say beer, but really
Yeah.
something else.
Right. Absinthe. Great. Yeah.
Yeah,
It has a
it's good
very
drink.
interesting taste.
It does.
Very
and it
interesting.
is.
And they're also quite different. I have a friend who is quite into absinthe, and he let me try 2 different kinds one time. I think the only time I've ever tried it, and they had quite different tastes.
Yes, it is very different coming from the country and what you're putting in, and it's very complex. And it's also a cultural thing where it started and got forbidden in France and so on, and now you have to take care of what you're putting in. But in Armenia, you're also having some producers, but small family. I mean, friend-wise, where you can get it.
Really?
Wow,
producing it
he
themselves.
knows. He
There
knows
is Armenian
places.
absinthe.
Yeah, but they're doing it for private consumption, and
Oh.
it's
Have you
very
tried it?
interesting. Yes,
Absinthe
and
moonshine.
they're having this autochthon lilies. This autochthon lilies they're putting in, and this is really very special then, and it's giving the Armenian touch to it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting.
Absinthe tasting like dolma. Dolma tasting.
Like ouzo. Yeah. It's having this anise taste, but it's not anise. Yeah.
What is there anything that gets to you, that irks you or aggravates you about living here?
The answer
This
to
is
the,
the
I
last
mean,
question,
really
I
the
guess.
answer to the to the end. Now I'm going to stay somewhere.
Yeah,
everybody
let's say
is going,
goodbye.
yeah. No, what's interesting, and it's also funny, it's about, because the country is quite small and Yerevan is quite concentrated, it's about the gossip, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, there you go.
Ah,
Especially
very
if you
interesting,
know
yeah.
many people, everybody knows each other, and this is very interesting. Didn't have faced it ever before, say it this way.
You had never faced any kind of gossip like that before.
Not in this dimension.
Wow, quite interesting.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that?
Which makes it more fun and more alive. And, you know, everything and nothing at the end, because people are also making parts up and so on, and they're improving the stories, of course.
It's got positive attitude about everything.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah.
Has that always been
So
part
nice.
of you? Have you always had this positive
It's not
attitude?
worth changing the negative parts. You're concentrating on the positive one. Yeah.
Yeah. Seems like we have a lot to learn from Edward.
I think it's all because of wine, Steven.
Yeah.
It's wine makes you dizzy and just it's just you don't care about all this
And all
gossip
people,
and stuff like that.
and all people working in this industry are really chilled. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, they found a way to enjoy life a little bit more.
And what have you found in your life to enjoy it?
What? Of course, my fiancée, of course,
Yeah.
and the wine and the happiness. But the happiness is not coming from outside. It's you have to find it in yourself.
There.
You gotta find it in yourself, Ina. Did you hear him?
Yes, I'm going to look for it right now. I'm leaving you
Drink
guys.
one more
I'm,
bottle.
I'm
you're
going
getting
inside
to.
right
Well, as always, you can listen to Homesick at Home every Friday night from 9 p.m., where we have one very interesting, one after the other, very interesting guest. We try to open them up and find out.
Discovering galaxies every time.
When discovering the galaxies and inside of each person. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me
for
here
being
and for
here.
the invitation. Thank you, Ina and Steve.
Thanks, and we hope that we'll meet again.
We do. Yes,
We will.
absolutely. We will.
Inside and outside the studio.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to end it on that philosophical note. You can always listen to us as here on www.radiovon.fm, and we have a Facebook page. Don't forget to sign in to Facebook and like us.
And follow us.
It's called Homesick at Home. It used to be called Homesick.
Homesick. Like a German.
It was like our German version. Homesick.
Steven.
And stick around because you never know. Open night might be coming up. It's Friday, and it's the radio station that never sleeps. Radio Von here in Yerevan. Keep listening. 103.0 with Ina MK
And Steven Oxner.